Lieber himmlischer Vater,
thank you for this morning.
danke für diesen Morgen.
And we ask you that you bless us as we study.
Und wir bitten, dass du uns segnest jetzt, wenn wir studieren.
Help our minds to dwell on the word.
Hilft uns, dass unsere Gedanken auf deine Wort fallen.
We ask for your Holy Spirit
Und wir bitten um den Heiligen Geist,
to guide us and instruct us
um uns zu führen und unterrichten,
so that we are able to understand the future.
sodass wir die Zukunft verstehen.
And we ask and thank you in Jesus' name.
Und wir bitten und danken in Jesu Namen. Amen.
Okay, so I've just been throwing some notes together
Also ich habe einige Notizen zusammen getan,
because I want to understand what's taking place here.
denn ich möchte verstehen, was hier stattfindet in der kleinen Zeit des Friedens.
Okay, so I have some thoughts and there might be some conflictions to things that we've looked at before.
Ich habe einige Gedanken und das mag vielleicht im Widerstehen dem, was wir bisher verstanden haben.
But I also have this mind that I'm always open to see things differently than maybe we had understood things.
Aber ich habe immer diese Gedanken, dass ich offen bin, Sachen so zu sehen, wie wir sie bislang nicht gesehen haben.
Okay, so there's this the vision of 1 Testament 2:16 talks about these two times of trouble.
Also in einer Vision von 1. Band der Zeugnisse, da spricht es über diese zwei Zeiten des Trübsals.
We've spent much time going through these two periods right here.
Und wir haben viel Zeit verbracht, um diese zwei Zeiten des Trübsals hier zu etablieren.
Right, and we know that in between these two times there's this little time of peace.
Und wir wissen, zwischen diese zwei Zeiten des Trübsals gibt es diese kleine Zeit des Friedens.
Okay, so what we also looked at this point that right here you have Cestius and also the year 538, right?
Und wir haben auch angeschaut, diese Parallele zwischen Cestius und 538.
Right, that gives us these two parallel time periods.
Es gibt uns diese zwei parallele Zeitperiode, also die 3,5 Jahre und die 1260.
Leads us to Titus and 1798.
Das führt von Cestius bis Titus, 3,5 Jahre, von 538 bis 1798, beide jeweils 1260.
Right, which is paganism and papalism.
Und
Right,
der eine ist der Heidentum und der andere ist Papst.
right.
Amen.
And we were looking at this time of trouble. Within this time of trouble, there's two times of trouble. Right.
Und diese Zeit des Trübsals, innerhalb davon gibt es diese zwei Zeiten des Trübsals.
Okay. Now, go to turn in your Spirit Prophecy to early writings 54.
Und wir gehen jetzt zu Frühschriften 54.
Which one's the best one? Is it EG or FS?
FS.
So put it in there in German.
Es ist in Deutsch in den Livestream jetzt.
So this vision, we've been through this several times.
Also diese Vision, wir haben das einige Male angeschaut.
So let's begin by just reading through it. It says, I saw a throne, and on it sat the who's sitting on it?
Well, I've got LA Writings 54 here and I don't see that.
2, paragraph 2.
Yeah. My LA Writings. Okay.
Right, so we see the Father and Son, right?
Also wir sehen den Vater und den Sohn.
And we've been looking at this Father and Son relationship, right?
Und wir haben diesen Vater-Sohn-Beziehung angeschaut.
So I saw a throne, and on it sat the Father and Son. I gazed on Jesus' countenance and admired his lovely person. The Father's person I could not behold, for a cloud of glorious light covered him. I asked Jesus if his Father had a form like himself. He said he had, but I could not behold it. For, said he, if you should once behold the glory of his person, you would cease to exist. Before the throne, I saw the Advent people, the church and the world. I saw two companies, one bowed down before the throne, deeply interested, while the other stood uninterested and careless. Those who were bowed before the throne would offer up their prayers and look to Jesus. Then he would look to his Father and be pleading with him. A light would come from the Father to the Son, and from the Son to the praying company. Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from the Father to the Son, and from the Son it waved over the people before the throne. But few would receive this great light. Many came out from it and immediately resisted it. Right? So, the point that I want to at least explore is that this vision is talking about here.
Also der Punkt, den ich zumindest untersuchen möchte, ist, dass diese Vision hier in diese kleine Zeit des Friedens
Now,
ist.
previous to this, we've been looking at the fact that the light came at 2016 and light's been coming all the way through here, right?
Davor haben wir gesagt, dass das Licht fing an 2016 zu kommen. Und ich meine, an sich, das stimmt, weil Licht ist zu uns gekommen den ganzen Weg hindurch hier.
But the more I look at this, the more I'm inclined to at least for the moment, to suggest that or at least explore the thought that this is the light and this is the exceeding bright light.
Und desto mehr, dass ich das anschaue, umso mehr bin ich geneigt, zumindest diese Gedanken zu untersuchen, dass das Licht hier kommt und das äußerst helles Licht hier kommt.
And I'll show you the reasons why I have those thoughts.
Und wir werden die Gründe, weshalb ich diese Gedanken hege, anschauen.
Now, because the reason is, right, as soon as this exceeding bright light comes, what happens?
Und der Grund ist, dass sobald dieses äußerst helles Licht ankommt, was geschieht?
There's a separation.
Es gibt eine Trennung, die stattfindet.
And in the next paragraph,
In der nächste Absatz,
it says, I saw the Father rise from the throne, and in a flaming chariot go into the Holy of Holies within the veil and sit down. What's that marking?
was markiert das erste Satz?
Come on, it's not difficult.
das
The beginning of the investigative judgment,
ist
right?
der Anfang der Untersuchungsgericht.
Isn't the next sentence the investigative judgment? And when Jesus, because Jesus is not.
What's your, just mark it. The Father goes in, sits down, right? That's Daniel chapter 7, right?
Der Vater geht ein und setzt sich nieder, es ist Daniel 7.
Christ gets up and he's leading them in this vision, right? So it's along a narrow way. So it's not showing you Christ in the most holy place.
When he raises his hand.
I know, but that's later. But this right here, when he's leading you on the narrow path, is the investigative judgment. We've been through this many times. I don't know why you're making these arguments.
Christus hier, der dich auf dem schmalen Weg führt, das ist der Untersuchungsgericht.
There's two parts to this vision, right?
Zwei Teile zu dieser Vision.
So when he gets up here, right, and walks the narrow way, where was it from and to?
Also wenn er hier aufsteht und diesen schmalen Weg entlang geht, von wo ist es und bis wo geht es?
To totally second.
You're not listening to it. From where and to where?
Also von wo bis wo?
From the midnight cry to October 22nd, right?
Von der Mitternachtsruf bis zum 22. Oktober.
Okay, so when's the investigative judgment of the living in our time?
So, wann ist der Untersuchungsgericht der Lebendigen in unserer Zeit?
Oh, okay, so there's other visions that show that. So when he gets up and he's walking that narrow way, that's the investigative judgment. It's just showing you a different aspect of what's taking place there.
Wenn Christus aufsteht und diesen schmalen Weg geht, das ist der Untersuchungsgericht. Das zeigt dir nur eine andere Ansicht derselben Sache.
Okay, but we're dividing the history, right? Putting the things together, right? So the point I'm making in Daniel chapter 7, when the Ancient of Days comes in, the throne's placed down, it says the judgment was said and the books were opened, right?
Daniel 7, wenn es sagt, dass der Ancient of Days, wie das
Yeah, go to Daniel 7.
dass der Alte an Tage hineinkommt und niedersetzt, das ist der Öffnung des Untersuchungsgerichts. Gehen wir zu Daniel 7.
Come down to verse 9.
Daniel 7, Vers 9.
It says, I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was said, and the books were opened. Right? So when the Father gets up, goes through there, and sits down on his throne, the judgment is said, and the books are opened. Right?
Also der Vater hindurchgeht und niedersitzt, also das Gericht wird gelegt und die Bücher werden geöffnet.
Right? Okay, so it's just marking this marking for us there that something happens just before the investigative judgment of the living, right? So it's like
etwas geschieht gerade bevor der Untersuchungsgericht an den Lebendigen anfängt.
Right? So, but basically, as soon as the Father sends the exceeding bright light, as soon as he sent it, he gets up and he goes home, and the judgment opens, because now these classes are demonstrating their character, right? And it's been registered in the books. Right?
Also sobald dass diese äußerst helles Licht gesandt wird, der Vater steht auf, geht hinein und setzt sich nieder, und dieses Untersuchungsgericht fängt an, denn es markiert der Punkt nur, wo diese zwei verschiedene Charaktere geoffenbart werden, und es wird eben in die Bücher niedergeschrieben.
Okay, now go to Great Controversy.
Lasst uns jetzt zum großen Kampf gehen.
Page 30.
Seite 30.
Paragraph 2.
30.2.
Okay, so it says, not one Christian perished in the destruction of Jerusalem. Christ had given his disciples warning, and all who believed his words watched for the promised sign, when he shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies. said Jesus, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out. Okay, so this is the sign comes here, right? But they're not able to obey the sign right at that point, right?
Das Zeichen kommt hier an, aber die sind gerade an dieser Stelle noch nicht imstande, dieses Zeichen zu gehorchen.
It goes on, it says, after the Romans under Cestius had surrounded the city, they unexpectedly abandoned the siege when everything seemed favorable for an immediate attack. The besieged, despairing of successful resistance, were on the point of surrender when the Roman general withdrew his forces without the least apparent reason. But God's merciful providence was directing events for the good of his own people. So it seems like God's people are just about to be overthrown, right? When the Lord does something to benefit them, right?
Es scheint, als ob Gottes Volk kurz davor stehen, überrannt zu werden oder überworfen zu werden. Gerade an dem Punkt, Gott tut was für sie.
Okay, so we would take this, the place where Cestius flees, right?
Wir werden das hier, der Punkt, wo Cestius flüchtet,
Right, because it's marking this little time of peace between Cestius leaving and Titus returning, right?
das markiert diese kleine Zeit des Friedens, wo Cestius abzieht und Titus ankommt.
Okay, the Titus here is marking where it's Jerusalem is destroyed, not where he comes.
Also Titus hier, das ist markiert, wo Jerusalem zerstört werde, aber nicht, wo er ankommt.
Alright. So it says, the promised sign had been given to the waiting Christians, and now an opportunity was offered for all who would obey the Saviour's warning. Events were so overruled that neither Jews nor Romans should hinder the flight of the Christians. Upon the retreat of Cestius, the Jews, sallying from Jerusalem, pursued after his retiring army. And while both forces were fully engaged, the Christians had an opportunity to leave the city. Okay, so what gives them an opportunity to flee?
Also was ist es, was sie eine Möglichkeit erschafft, dass sie flüchten kann?
The Jews set forth to take Romans.
Okay, so in this illustration, how many classes do we see?
Also die Juden, die gehen nach den Römern. Also in dieser Darstellung, wie viele Klassen
Never
gibt es?
ever 3 classes.
Es gibt nie 3 Klassen.
Of fighting and the one of
No. Classes, Margaret, not groups.
Also Klassen, nicht Gruppen.
Okay, classes, there's always an evil class and a good class. But there's many groups of evil and there's many groups of good,
Also
right?
2 Klassen gibt es immer nur 2, die Gute und die Bösen. Aber innerhalb von diesen Klassen gibt es viele Gruppen, die Böses tun und so weiter.
Okay, so I'm asking, how many classes do we see here?
Also wie viele
Answer is
Klassen
2,
sehen
right?
wir? Also es gibt 2.
Okay, but what you see is specifically what I want us to look at is that you've got the Christians and the Jews, right?
Also spezifisch aber, wir wollen anschauen, du hast den Christen und den Juden.
Okay, just go to Romans chapter 2.
Geht zu Römer Kapitel 2.
Verse 28.
Römer 2, Vers 28.
It says, for he is not a Jew, which is one outwardly, neither is that circumcision which is outward in the flesh, but he is a Jew which is one inwardly, and circumcision is that of the heart and the spirit, and not of the letter, whose praise is not of men but of God. So many classes do we see here in these two verses?
In diesen 2 Versen 28, 29, wie viele Klassen gibt es?
2 classes, right?
2.
What's the difference between the two?
Was ist der Unterschied zwischen den 2?
Yeah. One, they are Jews in the heart because they are circumcised, and the other ones are just here.
The ones that are circumcised in the heart, who are they?
Also diejenigen, die im Herzen beschnitten sind, wer sind sie?
The Christians, right?
Die Christen.
Because they have Christ in their heart, right?
Weil sie Christus in ihrem Herzen haben.
Right, but the other group are ruled by their flesh, right?
Die andere Gruppe, sie sind durch ihrem Fleisch regiert.
And that's what you see right here. When that exceeding bright light comes, you immediately see two classes, right?
Das ist das, was hier passiert. Wenn dieser äußerst helles Licht kommt, es wird sofort zwei Klassen zu sehen.
Right?
Amen.
So when you read this, it says.
Also in den Zitat zurück.
The promised sign had been given to the waiting Christians. That's the ones that are following Christ, right? For the waiting Christians, and now an opportunity was offered for all who would to obey the Saviour's warning. Events were so overruled that neither Jew nor Romans should hinder the flight of the Christians. Upon the retreat of Cestes, the Jews sailing from Jerusalem pursued after his retiring army, and while both forces were thus fully engaged, the Christians had an opportunity to leave the city. So there's an event that's marked by a sign that's taken place that allows you time to leave the city, right?
Also es gibt ein Ereignis, die durch den Zeichen markiert ist, die stattfindet, und das gibt dir die Möglichkeit, den Stadt zu verlassen.
And that event is those that are not guided by the Spirit are fleeing into a battle with the Romans, right?
Und diese Ereignis sind diejenigen, die nicht voller Geist sind, voller den Heiligen Geist sind, die gehen in einen Kampf mit den Römern hinein.
So they're taking on Rome in their own strength, right?
Also in eigenen Kraft versuchen sie, Rom zu überwältigen.
Okay, what does that mean for us in this time of our history?
Und was bedeutet das für uns hier am Ende der Welt?
Right, because, and where do we have an illustration of God's people doing public evangelism in their own strength?
Also öffentliche Evangelisation war der Antwort. Und wo haben wir eine Darstellung, wo hier am Ende der Welt die Menschen öffentliche Evangelisation in eigenen Kraft tun? Und das says in your wonderful word.
Yeah, okay, it's this illustration that is marking the point where you're going to close your salvation.
Also wo die Städte gehen und tun ein wunderbares Werk.
Okay,
Das
so
markiert der Punkt, wo sie ihre Gnadenzeit abschließen.
okay, so the point is that when Cestes flees away, it's a sign, right?
Also wenn Cestius flüchtet, das ist auch ein Zeichen.
So the sign for us, right, at least as far as this paragraph is concerned, is when you see, right, your brethren that are not following Christ, right, taking on or doing this work in their own strength,
Also
right?
das Zeichen für uns hier am Ende der Welt, zumindest gemäß diesem Zitat, die wir gelesen haben, ist was, wenn du deine Geschwister siehst, die nehmen diesen Werk in der Hand im eigenen Kraft.
Now, I don't know, I know somebody here seen it because they posted it, but, or maybe it wasn't somebody here, but there's a video of Clayton Pippinger. I don't know if you've seen it.
Also es gibt ein Video von Clayton Pippinger, das ist der Sohn von...
I mean, I didn't watch all the way through, but I just clicked forward to see what was the point of this thing.
Also ich bin nur bruchweise durchgesprungen, nur um zu erfassen, was der Sinn des Ganzen war.
And he's just given a lecture or a presentation on the work that he's just been doing in Africa. He's been all over Africa to many different countries.
Und er ist gerade zurück von Afrika, der hat viele Länder in Afrika besucht und dieses Video ist eine Darstellung von das Werk, die er da gemacht hat.
And he's been in all these different countries and he's been providing them with like laptops and stuff to present, that he's preparing all these groups all the way through Africa to take forward the message. So he's been providing money and means so Basically, he went there, took them shopping, bought all the things that they needed, spoke to them a bit about it, and flew to the next country, right?
So, was getan hat, ist, ist nach eine Gruppe in der ein Land gegangen, und ist mit sie einkaufen gegangen und hat sie Laptops und alles mögliche an Geräte, die sie brauchen, und sie ein bisschen darin unterrichtet, so dass sie imstande sind und haben den Equipment, die sie brauchen, um zu lehren. Und dann ist zur nächsten Gruppe gegangen. Ist ganz durch Afrika so gegangen.
So we can see that they're in the preparations of that, right?
Also wir können sehen, dass sie in die Vorbereitungsphasen sind, diese Botschaft in die Städte zu bringen.
Okay, so just for Lon's sake, what we are doing is we're putting all these different things in place, but we're just exploring the opportunity, the possibility, thank you, that the light and the seed and bride light are here and here. So we're just looking at some things to try that.
Also das war nur für Bruder Lorenz, der nachhinein gekommen ist, eine kurze Erklärung.
Okay, so, 1848, right?
1848.
What happened in 1848?
Was ist 1848 geschehen?
It typifies the Sunday law, right?
Es schattet den Sonntagsgesetz voraus.
Right? And it's this trouble that comes, right?
Es ist dieser Trübsal, der darauf entsteht.
And how long does the trouble last?
Und wie lange dauert diesen Trübsal an? 3 months.
Okay, 3 months, right?
3 Monate.
And at the end of the 3 months, there's a quote on this. Maybe just go there and I'll translate it. Great Second Advent Movement.
Also
GSAM.
GSAM
272.3.
272.3.
Okay, it says, some 3 months later, the outburst among the nations quieted down, not, however, by a settlement of their grievances, but in a manner that journalists themselves could not explain. Of this trouble, Horace Greeley in the New York Tribune said, it was a great wonder to us all what started so suddenly, that confusion among the nations, but it is a great wonder still what stopped it. So it started very suddenly and it just all of a sudden came to a stop after 3 months, right?
Es hat plötzlich angefangen, aber nach 3 Monaten ist es umso plötzlicher aufgehört.
Right, so all of a sudden there was this chaos and all of a sudden there's this peace.
Plötzlich gab es dieses Chaos und dann plötzlich gab es Frieden.
Okay, so we know that 1848 is a parallel to the American Civil War. Right?
Also wir wissen, dass 1848 eine Parallel ist zu der amerikanischen Bürgerkrieg.
Right, and you know you can look closely at the American Civil War and see that the Lord's hand was in the play between this battle between the North and the South.
Und wenn du das amerikanische Bürgerkrieg nahe betrachtest, du kannst sehen, dass Gottes Hand da drin war in diesem Krieg zwischen Norden und Süden.
And it's the North that gets the victory. Right?
Und das Norden erhält den Sieg.
So we know that in Daniel 11:40.
Also wir wissen in Daniel 11, Vers 40,
Okay, the South comes against the North right here,
das Süden kommt gegen das Norden hier,
but the North retaliates,
aber
right?
das Norden erwidert den Angriff.
And we can understand that the North retaliating is the you know them basically putting martial law in place. They basically overthrow them and the armies conquer them and bring peace back to or bring public order back into play.
Weil diese Erwiderung des Kampfes von den Norden gegen den Süden, das wäre gleich mit so Martial Law, wie sagt man das?
Kriegsrecht.
Also Kriegsrecht, wo zivile Ordnung wiederhergestellt wird.
Now, just go to John chapter 13.
Gehen wir zu Johannes Kapitel 13.
Now, there's much more information I'm still trying to gather together on this.
Es gibt viele Informationen, die ich immer noch versuche hierauf zusammenzubringen. Oder hierzu zusammenzubringen.
Verse 1.
Vers 1.
It says, Now, before the feast of the Passover, when Jesus knew that his hour was come, that he should depart out of this world unto the Father, having loved his own which were in the world, he loved them unto the end. And supper being ended, the devil, having now put into the heart of Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, to betray him, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things in his hand, that he was come from God and went to God, he riseth from supper and laid aside his garments and took a towel and girded himself. Right? It says, after that he poureth water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. Then cometh he to Simon Peter, and Peter saith unto him, Lord, dost thou wash my feet? Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but thou shalt know hereafter. Peter saith unto him, Thou shalt never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. Simon Peter saith unto him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus saith unto him, He that is washed and needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit, and ye are clean, but not all. Okay? So, what is he doing right here?
Also was tut hier?
What's Christ doing?
Was tut Christus?
Washing their feet. We just read about this the other day. What is he doing when he's washing their feet?
So was tut Christus, wenn ihre Füße
Higher
wascht?
cleansing.
It's a higher cleansing illustrated by the law, right?
Es ist eine höhere Reinigung dargestellt durch das Niedrige.
And what was he cleansing?
Und was hat er gereinigt?
Let's let me just quickly remember where that's.
Sins that they picked up along the way.
Yes. 1 second. It's in Desire of Ages. I'm just looking. Let not your heart, no, in remembrance of me, chapter 72. I think it is.
Isn't it in Servant of Servants?
Okay, yes, the one before the Servant of Servants, that's it.
Which page?
Just 1 second, I'm looking for it. Okay, just go to Desire of Ages 642.
Das Leben Jesu 642 in Englisch.
Okay, go to, because it's a big chapter, we've got time to go through it all. We went through this the other day, but okay, go to 643.4
643.4.
and let's just begin there. Let me just go to this. put this. That's a big chapter of it. I just put it all, the rest of it in there. In case we want to read it. Okay, go back to that 643.4. Okay, it says, now this is something that it says at the beginning, he knew that his hour was come, right?
Das am Anfang, Christus hat gesagt, er wusste, dass seine Stunde gekommen ist.
Right? And it was something that he had to do for them, right, just before he's going to go to the cross.
Und Christus wusste, dass das hier eine Sache, die er für seine Jünger tun musste, gerade kurz bevor er zum Kreuz gehen musste.
But it's also, and we read this, I don't know exactly what it is, but I need to find it, but it's also something he does for them, otherwise they cannot partake of the Passover meal that they're about to eat.
Und es ist irgendetwas, was er für sie tun musste, das haben wir vor einigen Tagen gelesen, noch bevor sie so dass sie den Passa-Fest Teilnahme sein kann.
Now, just to understand this, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 11.
Gehen wir zum 1. Korinther Kapitel 11.
Because when you take communion, right? What comes first? Footwashing or eating?
Also in den Abendmahl, was kommt zuerst? Das Fußwaschen oder das Essen?
Footwashing.
Das Fußwaschen.
Right? He gave us this ordinance as a lesson, right?
Und er hat uns diese Abendmahl gegeben als einem Unterricht, eine Lektion.
So, how I understand it, and I'll give you the reasons why, right?
Wie ich das verstehe, und ich werde den Gründen weshalb geben,
is he needs to give you the foot washing before he can give you the meal, right?
also er muss den Fußwaschung geben, noch bevor er den Mahl anbieten kann.
See my reasons for that in a moment, right?
Ihr werdet die Gründe, weshalb ich das sage, gleich sehen.
Now, meal, which is the Passover, right?
Also diese Mahl, was der Abendmahl ist.
Right, in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 23.
Also in 1. Korinther 11, Vers 23.
This is Paul speaking. He's paralleling his experience to the experience of the disciples.
Und das ist Paulus, der hier spricht, und er vergleicht seine Erfahrung zu den Erfahrungen der Jünger.
He says, "For I have received of the Lord that which also I delivered unto you, that the Lord Jesus, the same night in which he was betrayed, took bread." So what had Paul delivered unto the people?
Also was hat Paulus den Volksmenge gegeben?
He's just saying he partook of the same thing he gave them. So what did he?
Bread.
Bread, right?
Also Brot.
What's bread a symbol of?
Und was ist Brot?
The word.
That's the word,
Das ist
right?
das Wort.
And when he had given thanks, this is speaking about Christ now, when he had given thanks, he brake it and said, "Take, eat, this is my body, which is broken for you, this do in remembrance of me. After the same manner also he took the cup when he had supped, saying, This cup is the New Testament in my blood. This do ye as oft as ye drink it in remembrance of me." So, question.
Also Frage jetzt.
Where do we place this on our line and why?
Wo legen wir das auf unsere Linie und warum?
It's drinking of the cup. It's the New Testament.
No, but that's not okay. That's what it says. But I'm saying, where do we put it on our line and why?
Also wo markieren wir das auf unserer Linie und warum?
It's okay, but why?
Am Mitternachtsschluss.
Because it's the cross, right?
Warum? Weil es das Kreuz ist.
And
Investigative judgment?
no. is the cross, right?
Das Kreuz.
It's marking the dispensation change from the old to the new.
Es markiert der Wechsel im Dienst vom Alten zum Neuen.
Right? Okay, so what I want you to understand, right, is Christ is preparing, he does this whole, what he's doing there is a preparation for the cross, right?
Alles, was hier tut, diese gesamte Zeremonie, ist eine Vorbereitung auf das Kreuz.
But within this, what he's doing, there's a illustration of the cross, right? So it's a fractal within a fractal, right?
Aber innerhalb von das, was hier tut, gibt es eine Darstellung des Kreuzes, also eine Fraktal innerhalb eines Fraktals.
So the Passover meal is a parallel to the cross,
Also
right?
der Passafest ist gleich mit dem Kreuz, also parallel mit dem Kreuz gestellt.
No, not that it's here. No, it's not. Just read on a minute. It says. Verse 26, it
Vers
says,
26.
For as often as ye eat this bread and drink this cup, ye do show the Lord's death till he come. Right? It's marking the cross.
Markiert das Kreuz.
Wherefore, whosoever shall eat this bread and drink this cup of the Lord unworthily shall be guilty of the body and the blood of the Lord. But let a man examine himself, and so let him eat of that bread and drink of that cup. So what must you do before you partake of it?
Was musst du tun, noch bevor du teilnimmst an diesem Abendmahl? Wash your feet.
No, that's not what it says. What does
Examine
it? Examine yourself,
Also
right?
steht hier, dass du dich selbst untersuchen musst.
So what does it mean to examine yourself?
Was heißt es, dich selbst zu untersuchen? Search your hearts.
Yeah, to search your hearts. Not that is not okay. You have to basically searching your heart, preparing, right, for something, right?
Also du musst dein eigenes Herz untersuchen in Vorbereitung auf irgendwas.
Now we know that the cross right here is also marking the beginning of the investigative judgment of the living, or the day of atonement,
Wir
right?
wissen, dass das Kreuz hier markiert das Untersuchungsgericht an den Lebendigen oder der Versöhnungstag.
Now just prior to the day of atonement, what happened?
So, gerade vor der Versöhnungstag, was ist geschehen? People are afflict their souls.
There's a trumpet blown, right?
Es gibt eine Posaune, der gestoßen ist.
And there's a trumpet blown, and between the trumpet blown and the Day of Atonement, what were you to do?
Innerhalb von der Zeit zwischen, wo diese Posaune gestoßen worden ist und der Versöhnungstag, was solltest du tun?
Examine yourself.
Okay, you have to examine yourself, right?
Du musst dich untersuchen.
So I would suggest that the trumpet parallels this foot washing, right?
So, ich schlage vor, dass diese Posaune ist parallel mit dieser Fußwaschung.
And the trumpet is a clear signal, right?
Und das Posaune ist ein klares Signal.
Right? And when Cestius flees away, it's a clear signal or a sign, right?
Als Cestius flüchtet, das ist ein klares Signal oder ein Zeichen.
So what I'm saying is when you see this sign, what is it clearly telling us that we have to do?
Also wenn wir diese Zeichen sehen, was sagt es uns, was wir zu tun haben?
Without haste.
Also ohne zu verzögern.
Without haste. Examine yourself.
I mean without, yes.
Without delay.
Without delays.
Also ohne zu verzögern.
That's why I said that, right? Without delay, yes, thank you. Right? So, we're to do it very quickly, right? Not to leave one moment, right? Because it says that those that delayed for a moment, the slayer would overtake them, right?
Wir mussten es sofort tun, denn auf dem Weg zur Zufluchtsstadt, wir haben gesagt, diejenigen, die verzögern, also der Schlachter wird sie überrennen.
So go back to John 13.
Can we just
Zurück
add
zu
one
Johannes
verse?
13.
One, sorry?
Can we just add one verse to it?
From 1 Corinthians 11?
1 Corinthians 14 verse 8.
Also 1.
Yes.
Korinther 14, Vers 8.
For if the trumpet give an uncertain sound, who shall prepare himself to the battle?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's a nice.
So, if you hear the trumpet, you must prepare, examine yourself, and then
Yes, right.
into the battle.
So, let's just write here. Examine self, right?
Also hier schreiben wir selbst untersuchen.
Okay, so go back to John 13.
Also jetzt zu Johannes 13.
Now, what I'm saying is that the foot washing, right, and we will hopefully read it in a sec, was to prepare them to eat the meal, right? So let's find that point.
Also das Fußwaschen, das werden wir gleich sehen, das war in Vorbereitung, so dass sie den Passafest oder den Mahl teilnehmen konnten.
This first paragraph that we're looking at is out of Ages 643:4.
Also in den Notizen, also diese Zitat, Leben Jesu, 643.4.
There was a strife among them, which of them should be accounted the greatest? What's wrong with their condition?
Also was ist mit ihrem Zustand los?
Seeking to exalt themselves.
They're full of self, trying to get first place, full of jealousy and envy and all these things, right?
Also sie sind immer noch voller Selbst, sind voller Neid und Selbstsucht und versuchen den ersten Plätzen und all diese Sachen.
It says, the contention carried on in the presence of Christ grieved and wounded him. The disciples clung to their favorite idea that Christ would assert his power and take his position on the throne of David. And in the heart, each still longed for the highest place in the kingdom. They had placed their own estimate upon themselves and upon one another. And instead of regarding the brethren as more worthy, they had placed themselves first. Okay, so I don't need to read the rest up, right? So you can see why Christ has to do this before here, right?
Also wir können sehen, dass es einen Bedarf gibt, dass Christus das hier tut, noch bevor das hier.
One point to it.
Yes.
Because if you read the rest, she says about the request of James and John to sit on the right and left of Christ's throne. This was like bothering everybody.
Yes, right.
So what they basically did is they asked, because based upon an evil motive, to be these two anointed ones, right? To be right and left to Christ.
Okay, so
also diese Frage, die aufkommt, wenn man so weiterliest von Jakobus und Johannes, dass sie auf den rechten und linken von Christi sitzt, also das hat viel Aufruhr oder viel Unruhe unter den Jüngern gebracht, weil im Grunde haben sie gefragt, können wir die zwei Gesalbten sein, zur linken und zur rechten von Christus.
okay, I'm just looking for it. It basically says, it's in John 16, but it says, Satan comes and he finds.
Is that not in John 14?
That's John 14, verse 13.
Vers 30. Also Johannes 14, Vers 30.
Okay, yes, John 14, verse 30. It says, hereafter I will not talk much with you, for the prince of this world cometh and hath nothing in me. Right? So, where is Satan allowed to come down and tempt you?
Also wo ist den Satan erlaubt, herabzukommen, um dich zu versuchen?
No, we're dealing with this here. Where is Satan allowed to come down and tempt you?
Wo ist Satan erlaubt, herabzukommen, um dich zu versuchen?
When you give the cry. After the little time of peace.
Yes, it's the it's the point I'm making. It's the investigated judgment of the living, right?
Das ist der Untersuchungsgericht an den Lebendigen. Also,
When he's testing Joshua, the high priest, it's a type of the time when Satan comes to tempt Christ, right?
also als Josua, der hohe Priester, getestet wird, das ist ein Typus, wenn er kommt, um Christus zu versuchen.
So right here, the tempter
Gerade hier der Versucher,
comes, right?
der kommt.
And what must he find in you?
Und was muss er in dir finden? Nothing.
Nothing.
Also gar nichts.
No envy, no jealousy, no seeking for first place, none of all this foolish nonsense that we see, right,
Also
within us,
kein
right?
Streif, kein Neid, kein Eifersucht, kein Suchen des ersten Platzes, also nichts von diesem Unsinn, die in uns ist.
So, the meal, the Passover, is marking this point where the tempter's going to come, right?
Also diese Abendmahl, das markiert der Punkt, also diese Passafest, wo der Versucher zu uns kommen wird.
And if you eat it unworthily, what does it say you're eating it to?
Und wenn du den Abendmahl unwürdigerweise isst, auf was isst du das Abendmahl hin?
To damnation,
Zur
right?
Verdammnis hin.
Right, and this is it's important that we see and understand this, right?
Es ist wichtig, dass wir das nicht nur sehen, sondern auch verstehen.
Right, just let me go down, it says, okay, come down 3 paragraphs, it begins with the disciples made no move.
Also 3 Absätze kommen wir herab und es fängt an mit den Jüngern, haben sich im Dienst zueinander nicht.
It says, the disciples made no move towards serving one another. Jesus waited for a time to see what they would do. Then he, the divine teacher, rose from the table, laying aside the outer garment that would have impeded his movements. He took a towel and girded himself. With surprised interest, the disciples looked on. So he takes off his garment right there. There's something in that we have to remember.
Er nimmt seine äußere Gewand ab hier und das bedeutet was.
With surprised interest, the disciples looked on, and then Silas waited to see what was to follow. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel wherewith he was girded. This action opened the eyes of the disciples. What did it do?
Was hat es getan?
It opened their eyes, right?
Ihren Augen geöffnet.
Bitter shame and humiliation filled their hearts. They understood the unspoken rebuke and saw themselves in altogether a new light. So what do they now see?
Was sehen sie jetzt
What
hier?
are they seeing? Where are they seeing?
Wo sehen sie hinein? Da.
They're seeing the deep recesses of their own evil hearts,
Also sie
right?
sehen den dunklen Schlunden ihres eigenen Herzens hinein.
Okay. Okay, so Christ expressed his love for his disciples. Their selfish spirit filled him with sorrow, but he entered into no controversy with them in regard their difficulty. Instead, he gave them an example they would never forget. His love for them was not easily disturbed or quenched. He knew that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he came from God and went to God. He had a full conscience of his divinity, but he had laid aside his royal crown and kingly robes, and had taken the form of a servant. One of the last acts of his life on earth was to gird himself as a servant and perform a servant's part. Before the Before the Passover, Judas had met a second time with the priests and scribes, and had closed the contract to deliver Jesus into their hands. Yet he afterward mingled with the disciples as though innocent of any wrong, and interested in the work of preparing for the feast. The disciples knew nothing of the purpose of Judas. Jesus alone could read his secret, yet he did not expose him. Jesus hungered for his soul. he felt for him such a burden as for Jerusalem. When he wept over the doomed city, his heart was crying, "How can I give thee up?" The constraining power of that love was felt by Judas. When the Saviour's hands were bathing those soiled feet and wiping them with the towel, the heart of Judas thrilled through and through with the impulse, then and there to confess his sin. But he would not humble himself. He hardened his heart against repentance, and the old impulses, for the moment put aside, again controlled him. Judas was now offended at Christ's act in washing his feet of disciples. If Jesus could so humble himself, he thought he could not be Israel's king. All hope of worldly honour in a temporal kingdom was destroyed. Judas was satisfied that there was nothing to be gained by following Christ. After seeing him degrade himself, as he thought he was confirmed in his purpose to disown him and confess himself deceived, he was possessed by a demon, and he resolved to complete the work he had agreed to do in betraying his Lord. Now, it says here he was possessed by a demon.
Es sagt hier, dass von Dämonen besessen worden ist.
But it's going to show us that after he eats the food, it says Satan enters into him, right? So it's like a progressive work. This Satan, basically, there's whenever light, if you reject light, what do you receive?
Also es wird zeigen, dass nachher, wenn das Abendmahl ist, dass es Satan, der in ihm hineinkehrt, und das ist wie eine progressive Steigerung dessen, und das ist ein Prinzip. Also, did you say when you reject light?
Yeah, if light comes and you reject it.
Also wenn immer Licht zu dir kommt und du lehnst es ab, was kommt zu dir? Darkness.
Darkness,
right? Level to the light that you reject.
Okay, so now remember in the vision,
kommt auf dich zu.
the vision of early writings.
Also in der Vision von Frühschriften, die wir gelesen
There's
haben.
two groups. Who does the light? Who receives the light?
Es gibt zwei Gruppen. Wer erhält das Licht?
The little praying company, right?
Betende Schar.
So, did Judas receive the light?
Hat Judas das Licht erhalten? Yes.
No. No, he did not receive it, right? He rejected it,
I thought
right?
it meant if the light came to him.
The light's always coming to everybody, right?
Also das Licht ist zu Judas gekommen, aber der hat es abgelehnt.
That's also one point I struggle with, is in a sense, because it says in the vision the light didn't come to the other group, it only came to the little pre-company.
It doesn't say it doesn't come to them, it just says that the little praying company received the light.
I'm pretty sure it says...
It doesn't say what you said, it doesn't say it didn't come to them.
Just let us look it up.
Yeah, we've read it this morning.
Also das Licht kommt nur zu den einen Gruppe.
It says, the light would come from the Father to the Son, and from the Son to the praying company.
Yes.
Then I saw an exceeding bright light come from the Father
Okay.
to the Son.
So it says it comes to the praying company. It doesn't say it doesn't go to the other ones, right?
Also das sagt, dass das Licht kommt zu den betenden Schar, aber es sagt nicht, dass es nicht zu den anderen geht.
Okay, so I'm not going on that one thing alone. I'm bringing other things together, right?
Also darauf alleine basiere ich meine These nicht. Also ich bringe andere Sachen zusammen.
Okay, so you might be right on that, but that's why I'm saying looking at this closely. So let's just put things together and not worry about that just now, right? So the point is that Christ washed his feet, but Judas was not having it, right?
Also, Christus hat seine Füße gewaschen, aber Judas, der wollte ja gar nichts davon.
Okay, and it says that he's now being possessed of a demon, right?
Es sagt hier, dass jetzt von Dämonen besessen wird.
Okay. Okay, so right, come down 2 paragraphs.
Also 2 Absätze nach unten.
It says, solemnly Christ said to Peter, if I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me. The service which Peter refused was the type of a higher cleansing. Christ had come to wash the heart from a stain of sin. In refusing to allow Christ to wash his feet, Peter was refusing the higher cleansing included in the law. he was really rejecting his Lord. It was not humiliating to the master to allow him to work for our purification. The truest humility is to receive with thankful heart any provision made in our behalf, and with earnestness to do service for Christ. At the words, "If I wash thee not, thou hast no part with me," Peter surrendered his pride and self-will. He could not endure the thought of separation from Christ. That would have been death to him. "Not my feet only," he said, "but also my hands and my head." Jesus said to him, "He that is washed needeth not save to wash his feet, but is clean every whit." Right? So, it tells you that this work of foot washing is to make you clean, right?
Also es zeigt, dass dieses Werk des Fußwaschens soll uns reinigen.
Okay, so when we take Revelation 12, what is the woman in Revelation 12? What does she have on?
Also in Offenbarung 12, die Frau hier, was hat sie angezogen?
The wedding gown,
Das
right?
Hochzeitsgewand.
It says in John 15, it's part of these chapters, and these chapters are very important.
Also es sagt in Johannes 15, und das ist ein Teil von diesen Kapiteln 14, 15, 16, 17, die sind sehr wichtig.
He says, those that have fruit, what's he going to do?
Also diejenigen, die Frucht haben, was wird er tun?
Purge them to bring forth more fruit, right?
Er wird sie reinigen, damit sie noch mehr Frucht hervorbringen können.
So what I'm suggesting is that this foot washing is so that you have some fruit when you get here, right?
Was ich vorschlage, ist, dass diese Fußreinigung dient dazu, dass wir Frucht haben, wenn wir hier ankommen.
So that he's going to purge you, that you bring forth more fruit,
So,
right?
dass er uns reinigen kann, damit wir noch mehr Frucht hervorbringen können.
Right?
Amen.
It says, he that doesn't have fruit, what happens to them?
Also er sagt, derjenige, der keine Frucht hat, was geschieht mit ihm?
So in John 15,
Johannes 15,
they get cut off, right?
sie werden abgeschnitten.
Right? Okay, we're sort of running out of time, but there's a whole ton of things that you have to put in, and you'll see how really profoundly close you got to look at things to get all the little pieces of the puzzle.
Also uns rennt jetzt die Zeit weg, aber es gibt einen Haufen von Sachen, die wir hier hinzufügen können und müssen, so dass wir das Gesamtbild erhalten.
Okay, so I'm going to stop here.
Also wir werden an diesem Punkt jetzt aufhören.
So don't allow things in your mind that you might not be clear to cloud out. Just keep an open mind, and we're going to go through this piece by piece. If there's any contradictions, then we will seek to try and overcome them.
Also nur weil das jetzt nicht vollständig ist, erlaube nicht, dass nur weil es der eine oder andere Sache, die auch nicht geklärt sind, dass das deine Gedanken trüben sollen. Lasst uns offene Gedanken halten, und wenn wir an Widersprüche ankommen, dann werden wir sie nach und nach bearbeiten.
Right?
Amen.
Okay. So let's close with prayer, and we'll continue this.
Dann lasst uns mit Gebet schließen, und wir werden damit später fortfahren.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, we thank you for this morning.
Lieber himmlischer Vater, wir danken dir für diesen Tag, für diesen Morgen.
Please help us to meditate upon your word
Bitte helft uns, dass wir über dein Wort nachsinnen,
and help us to take it with us on this day.
und helft uns, dass wir es durch unseren Tag hindurchtragen können.
And please lead us and be with our brothers and sisters.
Und bitte segne uns und sei mit unseren Geschwistern.
We ask and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Wir bitten und danken in Jesu Namen. Amen.